So, you want to start a diet. Well, this morning you stepped on the scale and you were shocked by how large the number was. Well, worse would be if the scale started laughing at you or displayed an error code that too much weight was on it. However, you decide to diet. The next decision is which diet, because there are literally hundreds of them. The diets range from fasting to buying some fancy program that are advertised on TV. Which one are you going to do? The bottom line is that it's your choice to start the diet, and it's your choice to pick the method. The Lord has given humanity free will. And sometimes free will is an outstanding thing to have, and other times when it's a royal pain. When reading this narrative in John, the idea of free will comes to mind. The church likes to limit the interpretation of the narrative as an example of Jesus being divine, and that is a way to examine the narrative. Nothing wrong with that. However, there's something more to the narrative that I'd like to introduce to you, and it's the concept of free will. Each of us has the God-given right to decide for ourselves who and what Jesus is. The historian Josephus wrote about the history of the Hebrew people and authored passages about Jesus of Nazareth. He said that there were people who considered Jesus as divine because he rose from the grave 3 days after his death. Josephus does not call Jesus God, but gives us the facts of the event and what people thought. Even the Quran, the Muslim sacred writings, mentions Jesus. He's viewed as a prophet from the Lord. Jesus as Messiah is a prophet of the Lord. He was the special prophet that the prophets of old said would eventually come. The Gnostic Christians viewed Jesus as Messiah, who brought the lost information about how to get into heaven. Well, whether or not you consider Jesus as God incarnate, he brought us the way to heaven. The two great commandments, to love God and to love neighbor. Now, Jesus told a crowd of people that he was in full agreement with the Lord, thus doing and saying what the Lord wanted of him. The Ebionites were an interesting group of early Christians who believed that Jesus was made divine. When the Lord raised him from the dead and from the grave, he became divine because he was in 100% agreement with everything the Lord wanted him to do. There are people who are in our churches today who believe the Ebionite doctrine. They view a human Jesus, and on the third day he was made divine. Therefore, one must follow Jesus' actions and words to enter into heaven. Now, I've been sidestepping the question about Jesus as divine for a very good reason. It is up to you to determine who Jesus was. Was Jesus divine? That is God incarnate? Or was he the Messiah prophet that brought God's words of the forgiveness of sin, or both? The bottom line is that you have to decide that for yourself. Now, I learned after 25 years pastoring that many church people want the uncomplicated answer. So I taught a Christian theology class when Trinity came up, one older man got very, very angry at me, and he yelled at me to give him the answer to the question. Well, what question? He wanted me to tell him what to believe, and I refused to do that. I presented several accepted church opinions about Trinity and told him he had to decide which to follow. The result was that man stormed off. I felt sad for him. I believe that the Lord and Jesus want me to present the options, and there are always good options, and yes, there are bad options too. My task is to present all the church accepted options and let you decide. There are many Christian denominations because there are numerous views of who Jesus was and how we receive forgiveness from sin because of Jesus. The narrative itself emphasizes that each of us has the option of determining how we view Jesus. One thing is for sure, that Jesus was God's Messiah. It is through the words and actions of Jesus that many lost souls found their way back to the Lord. I happen to be one of them. I ignored God for numerous years until I was 35 years old, and I read about the life of Jesus. He inspired me to learn all I could and all about the different views. I read the Gospels and many other documents, and one day Jesus told me to preach his word and help people to understand what his original words meant. I had to learn about the culture and the language of Jesus' day. And this was a doorway into understanding what people in Jesus' day thought about his words and actions. I have to say again that I do not want anyone to determine who Jesus is based on what I'm presenting. I want to be very careful about that you must make that decision. I'll give you the options. But I've told you a little bit about me. I will conclude by telling you you have the choice. Jesus was in full agreement with the Father, what he wanted him to say and wanted him to do. I have only found one way to please God. And you do this by following the Torah. That's the first 5 books of the Bible. Jesus exemplifies the way to follow the Torah. If everyone on the planet acted like Jesus, this world would become a Garden of Eden. Well, hey, wait a minute. That's a cool thought. What if we are living in a disguised Garden of Eden? If all sins and corruption were taken away from all the people on the planet, then the Garden of Eden would be revealed to us. The earth would be without sin and would be like the garden. What a sweet thought. Perhaps we are living in a disguised Garden of Eden, which the Lord wants to reveal to us. The last word, which I know is redundant, the choice about Jesus and who he is and how he influences your life is your choice. Pray upon this because Jesus will speak to you. Even if you can't make the decision, follow Jesus' ways and actions as described in the Gospels. It'll make you smile because you're pleasing God. And God bless you for listening to this message. I hope it helps you in some way, shape, or form. And as always, shalom.